like to get started with this meeting. I'm looking around to see 32. You're 2 minutes late. You have to stay for a hearty-tardy party. Just kidding. I retired from teaching, so you're actually off the hook. Wonderful. Yes, someone said, how's your retirement going? I said, my what? Yes, exactly. So I'm so glad to have you all here. We'll do a roll call, please.
Okay, Chair Hardy.
Present.
Vice Chair Ragsdale.
Yes.
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 Yes, we
'Cause
do
we
have a
need to record
recording
it.
of this, yeah.
Present.
And sorry, just to editorialize, at the last meeting, we were a little quiet at the board meeting, so if we could speak to the mic, that would be fantastic. Director Chambers.
Present.
Director Duncan.
Present.
Director Pierce. Director Schneider told me she was running late.
Okay.
Director Stevenson. Director Vella.
Here.
And Director Zichterman.
Present.
Wonderful.
So we have
Thank you
quorum.
so much. We do have a quorum, and I will say, and I don't say this lightly, I truly appreciate your extra efforts here, being willing to be on the policy board. When we have such a large agency, it is so, and some people are not as engaged as others. I appreciate your extra efforts and your willingness to dive into a lot of these important details and realities and take the time to make some good recommendations. I think it makes a much better situation for the BAWSCA board, because I know on a council, getting a quorum of 7 people to agree on something, a majority, we only have 26. That's all. Enough said. So thank you for being here. And we we do not have anything new. As I often say, we know nothing new on the closed session situation. Now you were all caught up. So we are canceling the closed session for today. We hold that out. We put that on there in case we do have something come up, even after the agenda has been posted, just in case. So you're off the hook for that. All right, consent calendar. Approval of minutes from June 11th. Do I have any comments, questions, or a motion?
I move to accept the consent calendar.
Second.
I'm going to just beg you, Luis, to say that into a microphone.
Make a motion to accept the consent calendar. When the mic is on.
Yes. Do you want to say it one more time?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Thank you, Director Vila.
I'll second the motion.
And Director Zigerman has seconded that. Any comments? All right. I do not see any, because I do not believe we have anyone online. We can do that by a simple voice vote and by hand. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? That does appear to pass unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're up to public comment. Is anyone online or anyone here in our meeting room as a public member interested in speaking to us on something that is within our jurisdiction and purview? I hear crickets, so I think we're okay. Do we have anyone online at this point?
No, we wouldn't
Okay,
have any.
just wanted to make certain. Oh, that's right, that's right. All right, wonderful. No public comment. This is going quickly. Now we're up to action items. Adoption of resolution approving the extension of the 2021 Amended and Restated Tier 2 Drought Response Implementation Plan. And that is Danielle's baby.
Excellent. Good afternoon. Yes, this is an extension of the Tier 2 plan. As you know, shortages on the regional water system are governed by Tier 2 plans. The Tier 1 plan allocates water between the San Francisco retail customers and the wholesale customers collectively. The WSA provides that the wholesale customers may adopt a plan for allocating their Tier 1 supply amongst themselves. This is referred to as the Tier 2 Drought Response Implementation Plan, or Tier 2 plan for short. Next slide. The wholesale customers negotiated an update to the Tier 2 plan between 2022 and 2024. This negotiation included amendments to the water supply agreement between San Francisco and the wholesale customers. At this time, 25 of the 26 wholesale customers have adopted the updated Tier 2 plan and WSA amendment. However, it does require unanimous adoption to go into effect. The existing Tier 2 plan expires at the end of this calendar year, and while we believe that we will have unanimous approval before then, to be safe, we are recommending that the board extend the existing Tier 2 plan so that we have one in place. So next slide. The recommended action is that the Board Policy Committee recommend that the board adopt Resolution 2025-02, extending the term of the 2021 amended and restated Tier 2 plan through December 31st, 2026, or until all wholesale customers, governing bodies adopt an updated Tier 2 plan. Thank you.
Wonderful. I'd like the record to show that Director Pierce has joined us. Thank you. I had just a quick question. It's mostly for the understanding. Our Tier 1 is for, I'm trying to remember what triggers the Tier 2. In my head, I have a 20% drought situation or there, and how many times have we had to go to the Tier 1 and how many times have we had to invoke the Tier 2?
Sure. So both Tier 1 and Tier 2 are implemented at the same time. They apply during system-wide shortages of 20% or less. And we have only implemented both once. That was through the 2021 through 2023 drought.
Thank you. That is for anyone who wasn't clear, and it's important for everyone to understand that. And remember, yes, Director Zigerman.
So I have a frustration about this, but also a question. So why are we extending 12 months? Is there an option for something less? You're so close, Dan.
I want to make certain if our council can help us, because my understanding is if we extend this, but then the new adopted Tier 2 plan is unanimously adopted, then that supersedes. Is that correct?
I
My
think
question remains.
Okay.
I think we were just following past practice. I don't know that more thought went into it.
Yeah, I would speak to it to just say, we don't have any expectation that it will not pass City of Hayward in a November or December meeting. However, if it doesn't pass, then I don't know that I want to put a timeline on when it might pass. So that's probably why we're doing that.
Well, okay.
My city attorney has a wonderful term. He calls it belt and suspenders. So I kind of see this as a belt and suspenders, because we do truly hope we have one last agency, and this is on their, will be on their agenda before the end of the year. And the nice thing is it will be completely superseded and will be superfluous.
Yep, I get that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Whoa, more crickets. Do we have a motion for a suggestion of I shouldn't say suggestion, recommendation. Do we have a motion for recommendation? Director Ragsdale, please.
With gratitude toward Danielle and her patience, I move that the BPC recommend that the board adopt Resolution 2025-02, extending the term of the 2021 amended and restated Tier 2 plan through the end of December 2026, or until all wholesale customers governing bodies adopt an updated Tier 2 plan.
Thank you. Do I have
And
a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Thank
I have a second from Director Pierce. Thank you. Any discussion on this? I do not see any. All right. We should probably have a roll call vote on
Would you like a
action.
roll call vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't we do that?
All right. Chair Hardy,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ragsdale,
Yes.
Director Chambers,
Yes.
Director Duncan,
Yes.
Director Pierce,
Yes.
Director Vella,
Yes.
and Director Zichterman.
Yes.
Okay.
Wonderful. That passes unanimously. I appreciate that. That will go on to our next meeting and will be a recommendation from the policy board. Personally, I hope we don't have to use it. We all have, that would be one of my Christmas presents, is if we get that under the tree. Thank you so.
Hopefully a Thanksgiving present.
Oh, that would be even better. I
That would
will
be-
take that.
That would be better.
Or a Black Friday, I don't know, if it's on sale. And I do want to thank, you for, Danielle, for all your hard work and your patience and your tenacity over this. And everyone I've talked to that was in those negotiations was appreciative and very pleased with the way it went and the way you handled it. Thank you. All right. Oh, let the record show that we now have Director Schneider as well. Thank you so much. Like I said, we'll just put a light and you, I think I said something about a hearty tardy party. Just kidding.
I'm gonna bring it on 19th Avenue in the city of Boyd.
Okay. Note taken. Thank you so much. We're up to 5B. That's the annual review and consideration of BAWSCA's statement of investment policy. And that's Christina.
Thank you, Chair Hardy. Good afternoon, everyone. So as required by BAWSCA's investment policy, BAWSCA reviews the policy each year. The primary investment objectives are safety, liquidity, and yield in the priority order. The last review occurred in November 2024 and resulted in no changes. As you may already know, most agencies just have their investment policy to govern their agency funds, not the bond funds. But for BAWSCA, we have the investment applies to both funds, and that are discussed separately in the staff report. So based on a recent review of the policy and also agency's circumstances, BAWSCA believes the current permitted investments are consistent with our risk tolerance and also the primary investment objectives. So for our agency funds, both LAIF and CDs are allowed, but at this time we are only utilizing LAIF for the agency funds. For the bond funds, the permitted investments are Treasury securities, U.S. agency securities, money market mutual funds, and CDs. BAWSCA's legal counsel has confirmed that the language in the policy reflects the language consistent with the current state law. Therefore, no changes to the policy are recommended at this time.
Thank you so much. And I too appreciate that we're within state law because
Yeah.
this is where we can get, many agencies get out of compliance or not up on that. And that's a
Totally.
big concern.
Thanks
So
to
what
the-
I'm hearing from staff is stay the course.
Yep, definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
So, but this slides, what I'm going to present to you is the overview of our investment strategy for the bond stabilization fund. So among all the funds deposited at the trustee Bank of New York, there is a bucket of fund called stabilization fund, which serves as a purpose of reserve for the debt service payments in case there is a shortfall in the surcharge collection. So as you all know, reviewed of the stabilization fund, it's not part of investment policy, but BAWSCA has been reviewing it every year during the annual policy review. So the good news is BAWSCA's long-term portfolio strategy is performing very well. So it continues to provide important yield curve diversification. As of October 1st, our total funds held by trustee was 18.4 million, and among that, 5.7 million is from the bond surcharges invested in the money market fund, and 12.7 million stabilization fund are invested in the U.S. Treasury securities. Based on the recent evaluation, BAWSCA believes that the current 0 to 5 year laddered maturity investment strategy continue to be appropriate. Next, please. So this chart illustrates the current portfolio maturity distribution for the stabilization fund. So the funds are programmed to have approximately 10% invested in 6 months intervals to coincide with our debt service payment scheduled in the next 5 years. So as the rate falls, we are investing the securities in the declining rate environment, but the remaining portfolio that were previously purchased, has the higher locked-in rates available. And as the rates increasing, the maturing proceeds would be reinvested programmatically into the latter, into the higher interest rate available at that time. So that's the benefit of having the current ladder maturity structure in place. Next, please. So the recommendation is that the committee recommend the board to reaffirm the current statement of investment policy as presented in the attachment to the staff report. So thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Appreciate your good work on this. Any questions from any of the directors? They're out there. I can hear them breathing. Maybe that's because, Christina, you did such a good job and explained, and I would be thrilled to see more public agencies be this thoughtful in their long-term and short-term investment. I think there'd be a lot less consternation. Wonderful. I do not see any questions. Do I have a motion or a recommendation? Director Snyder, please. Well, you can see it up there if it's.
Recommend the board to reaffirmation of the current statement of investment policy. I can read.
Oh. Yes.
Oh.
I was going to say. Yes. Thank you. I was about to break
Second
it. But
I make a motion that the board policy committee recommend board reaffirmation of the current statement of investment policy. Second take.
wonderful. The motion's been made. Did I hear second? Okay. Director Vella has seconded that. Any discussion on that? Well, I would call this a stay the course, and I think we're on a good course. If we could have a roll call vote.
All right. Chair Hardy.
Yes.
Vice Chair Ragsdale.
Yes.
Director Chambers.
Yes.
Director Duncan.
Yes.
Director Pierce.
Yes.
Director Schneider.
Yes.
Director Vella.
Yes.
And Director Ziegderman.
Yes.
Wonderful. That passes unanimously. Gosh, we're in a good mood. All right. Moving right along. To me, I saw this as the heart of what we need to look at today. It is the reports and discussions about long-term reliability water supply and our strategy, and especially the affordability assessment. Again, did I say it right? Again?
Again.
Okay. This is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm looking forward to presenting to you all the work we've been doing the last few months as part of our ongoing Strategy 2050 development. This is in partnership with EKI. BAWSCA really wanted to look closer at water affordability and what that currently looks like within our region. And we know this is a really important topic for each of your agencies, especially as we're looking forward in our planning scenarios and decision making. And when we're talking about affordability, we're really referring to the general concept that water bills should not be a burden on households. So that's the meaning that people should be able to pay for essential water services and still meet other basic water basic needs like food, housing, and healthcare. So our goals today are threefold. We want to share the key findings from our affordability analysis. We want to kind of provide a context of why this is really important for your agencies and for upcoming Strategy 2050 decisions, specifically as we look at various projects and actions as part of Strategy 2050, and then get your input. As we review this material, I'd like to get your perspective on a few points. What questions do you have about the analysis and the methodology behind it? How does this analysis compare with your understanding of water affordability conditions within your agency service area? And would you suggest any changes for both the memo and presentation, as we were going to bring this back at the board in November? This is a slide we've seen many times, showing the purpose and objectives of Strategy 2050. I won't go through each of them again, but I want to emphasize that the analysis I'm presenting today is part of one of the key objectives of Strategy 2050, which is to support the availability of affordable water supply and demand management strategies to all of our customers. But before we can do that, we really need to assess what a water affordability looks like and is defined as in the Bay Area. And the affordability assessment goals are really to provide kind of a broad understanding of water affordability for both the average and underserved BAWSCA member agency single-family residential households, and to really inform Strategy 2050 decisions on both balancing reliability investments with affordability needs. So to understand what affordability looks like in our region, our analysis focused on answering these 4 key questions. The first being, how affordable is average water use for the typical household in the BAWSCA region? And on the next slide, I'll further explain in the methodology behind this analysis and what this exactly means. The second is, how affordable is basic water service for low-income households? So basic needs bill is represented as a presumed minimal monthly single-family water use. So daily use being 55 gallons per person per day. And the water cost is calculated per household size and per an agency's water rate. And again, I will be providing further context on what this means on the next slide. The third is, how have water costs changed relative to income growth and other essential household expenses over the past decade? And this is referring to the Bay Area specifically. And the fourth being, what is the extent of water affordability challenges in the BAWSCA region? And this is information that was obtained from the BAWSCA agencies through a survey that we had sent out. So I'll go step by step on how we have assessed affordability. Most affordability assessments are done by initially calculating what we call an affordability indicator, which is a percentage of your income that is spent on your water bill. We have looked at other assessments. We've really dug deep to see how others are how they're affordability assessed, and most of these have looked at what we see as the typical customer. So they're looking at the average customer water bill and this median household income. But we also wanted to look at a scenario in which is more representative of a low-income household. So our second scenario looks at basic needs water bill, again defined as 55 gallons per person per day, and this lowest quintile income. This is the 20th percentile income. Again, this is for a single family household, and water cost is calculated per household size and per agency's water rate. And then we compared this affordability indicator to an affordability threshold, so which is a target percentage of income for a customer water bill. There are multiple options for affordability thresholds, and then for this analysis, we use the state water boards to find statewide thresholds for water, which is defines affordable as if your water bill is anything less than 1.5% of a customer's income. It's potentially unaffordable if it's between 1.5 and 2.5%, and likely unaffordable if it's above 2.5% of your income. To dive deeper into the methodology and kind of the granular data that we use to obtain the results, I'll walk through some of the steps we took to calculate the affordability indicators for both the typical and the low income households in the BAWSCA region. So we looked at each individual census block group, and for each of them we have a maximum household income and a minimum household income. And we've calculated out for that median household income their individual affordability indicators. And we did the same at the lowest quintile income. So that, again, that's the 20th percentile. And we did that for each census block, with each having different populations, number of people in their households, and varying incomes. And we wanted to make sure we're gathering the most granular data we have available for the BAWSCA region. So again, we repeated this 1,941 times. That's how many census blocks are within the BAWSCA region. And then we aggregated it for the BAWSCA region. Again, we wanted to look overall in the BAWSCA area, what does affordability look like? So first we're going to look at the typical income household. That's the median household income. Again, this is a graphic that's representative of all the BAWSCA region for the median household income. That's what we're looking at here. And we see that at the median household income, again, that snapshot of households at that 50th percentile, the average water bill is likely unaffordable for 1% of typical income households, which means that for 1% of median household income households, the water bill is more than 2.5% of their income. We also see that the average water bill is potentially unaffordable, which means it's equal to or above 1.5% of household income for about 3.4% of typical households. Again, at the median household income. Now, when we look at this, the low income households, we dive deeper into that. We see that at the lowest quintile income, that snapshot of households at the 20th percentile, the average water bill is likely unaffordable for 8.7% of low-income households, which means that about 8.7% of the lowest quintile income households, they spend about more than 2.5% of their income on their water bill. And then we also see that for the basic water bill is potentially unaffordable for about 26% of low-income households, which means it's equal to or above 1.5% of income for about 26% of the households. So it's important to know this information as we look at various projects and actions which may come out of Strategy 2050. We now have more information to analyze what the cost of the potential projects and actions would have on both the average customer and the low income customer, as we move forward and we want to make these decisions. So we have this baseline knowledge of what affordability currently looks like in the BAWSCA region. The next step of our affordability analysis was to understand the relative cost of water compared to other essential household expenses over the last 10 years. And this work was completed by BAWSCA with support from our summer intern, Christina Iyer, from Eastside College Prep in East Palo Alto. Our effort was really to place water costs in context with broader economic trends that affect households in our region. So to do this, we brought together several data sets. We looked at the BAWSCA annual survey, and that provided details on both the water rate data as well as water use. We also looked at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, their Consumer Price Index, and it tracks changes in household expenses like food, housing, transportation, and healthcare within the Bay Area. We looked at PG&E data to capture trends in energy costs, and then the Federal Reserve economic data that provided median household income for San Mateo, Alameda, and Santa Clara County. And so by looking at water alongside these other costs, we can better understand whether households are feeling disproportionately that pressure from their water bills or not compared to other everyday essentials. So here we look at how water costs compare to other essential household expenses. This chart shows average monthly household spending patterns in the Bay Area, comparing fiscal year 13-14 on the left and fiscal year 23-24 on the right. You can see that water continues to represent a very small share of total household expenses, just about 1% of the average household budget in both years. Then in contrast, the biggest expenses that we see, it's housing, food, transportation, and healthcare. That makes up the majority of household spending, and those categories have shifted somewhat over the decade. One of the examples you could see here is housing, and that's decreased slightly as a share of total expenses from about 35 to 30% of a household's median income. And that shift between the median monthly household income was about $7,000 back in fiscal year 13-14, and it's gone up to close to $12,000 in 23-24. But the overall results of the comparative analysis really illustrates, in the broader context of housing spending, water remains one of the most affordable essential services for the average household in the BAWSCA region. And then we also wanted to look at, and I thought this was really interesting, this illustrates an important distinction between water rates and water bills, which we used in this analysis. So, and how they've really changed over time in the BAWSCA region. So the blue line there shows the percent change in average water rates since 2013 in the BAWSCA region, while the red line shows the percentage change in average household water bills over the same period. And you can see that while rates have increased by about 72% in that time period, over that decade, average household bills have only increased by about 35%. So that's a big difference, and it reflects the fact that households are using less water. So even though the price per unit has gone up, most customers have managed to keep their overall bills much lower through improved efficiency. And you'll also notice that that shaded area on the chart, those represent drought years. And during these periods, we typically see decreases in water bills. So the key takeaway here is that while rates have risen significantly, households have been able to offset much of that increase through more efficient water use. Finally, we'll look at how this all connects to what agencies are doing on the affordability front and where some of the challenges still lie. Alongside that quantitative analysis, Strategy 2050 team also wanted to understand how agencies across the BAWSCA region are currently addressing affordability through their own programs and practices. And to do that, we conducted a survey of the BAWSCA member agencies to get a clearer picture of the types of programs that are in place. And what we found is that many agencies are already offering forms of customer assistance, but these tend to focus on bill management rather than direct rate reductions. So the most common programs reported were payment and forgiveness plans at 29% of agencies. And then we have that flexible payment options, such as like extending due dates or adjusting billing schedules. And that was about 26% of our agencies. So one of the most consistent themes that we have heard from agencies was the challenge of Prop 218. And so it limits how rates can really be structured, and it makes it difficult for agencies to kind of design affordability programs that provide direct rate relief. To wrap up, I want to really highlight the key takeaways from this analysis and how this all ties together. Overall, water bills in the BAWSCA region appear to be broadly affordable, both for the typical single-family customers and for most low-income customers. But from our analysis, we also see that there are households that pay over 2.5% of their income on water, and we want to note that as we move forward with Strategy 2050 and the programs we're looking at. So when we look at long-term trends, household income has generally risen faster than water costs, which means that on average, water has become slightly more affordable over time for the average customer. And water bills have increased more slowly than water rates. And looking forward, our next steps under Strategy 2050 include two key pieces. One is evaluating the affordability impacts of potential Strategy 2050 projects and actions so that future projects or supply options that we are assessing, we really understand the cost of them, the cost effectiveness of them. But also for how they affect ratepayers. So we have that information now to understand that. And the second is really highlighting approaches that other California water agencies have used to support water affordability, whether through its program design, partnerships, or policies. We really want to see other ones that have been successful and see how we can apply that to the BAWSCA region. So these findings kind of provide a foundation for future affordability work that we're doing through Strategy 2050. At this point, I'd really want to open it up for any thoughts and feedbacks you have, particularly on how this analysis aligns with what you're seeing at your own service area and how we might present the findings for the full board in November. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Because this is not an action item, I would truly like to have each policy board member weigh in. If we can go around, you can pass if you want to, but because we've been given a lot of information and we appreciate having a long-term plan and recognizing where we're at. So I'll start with Director Schneider. We'll go around, like I said, if you don't want to say anything, you say pass.
Okay, thank you. I think the study that you've done so far is great. However, and forgive me, I'm going to sound pretty harsh here. I'm going to be blunt. Averaging hides a lot of details. So when I look at all of this for the average customer, yeah, I get it. However, depending on every water district, you have a whole range of socioeconomics. So what I would like to see, for example, and especially in my profession, the services that we roll out to somebody living in an apartment with very little landscape area with individual water bills is different than a single family home. What I have seen, and I hate to say this about the community I grow up in, water rates may be affordable, but they've stopped watering. So I am now walking all over my city, and what I am seeing is a majority of houses that are getting close to what we would consider blighted on that. And I think that there's a blight impact in certain socioeconomic areas, Millbrae being one of them, that they've just stopped watering. So yeah, they can afford the water for their internal household use, but what that means to a city is more cost on code enforcement, which is an entirely different department than the water department. The costs are simply shifting on that. I think it's also a function of, again, from my city, we have many people moving from San Francisco with no yards, coming into a place with yards and letting them go to hell. I mean, honestly, go to hell. So what I think when I look at averages, I go groovy, but it doesn't mean anything to me, sorry. What I'd like to see is the water bills for the income levels living in a more townhome, single family, although remember townhomes under HOA, that water bill's handled in a totally other area. It gets complicated. I have a townhome. So I've got a huge water bill because we're on SFPUC land, so we pay a lot for that, versus what's spent in the backyard, which is drought tolerant. So it gets complicated. But I really would like to see single family homes versus apartment townhome living, because I think it might tell a different story on that. And if the end result might be cities, you have to do more code enforcement to have people water. Now let's put on the fire map assessment. And all of us who have communities or portions of our community that are at high fire risk, one of the long-term fixes is to go to fire-resistant planting. Well, okay, I can afford to rip out plants and do that. But a senior on fixed income or somebody on disability income, and I'm just now learning what it's like to be on a fixed income, it's different. My health rates are going up 20%. Wow. It's different on that. So I think we need to look at not just low-income families, but are they seniors and are they disabled? Because they're truly much more likely to be on a forever fixed income, as opposed to maybe a family that's had some hardship. I think we need to look again, single family, multifamily, and then there are the city's abilities. I liked your quote, but down at the end you said 29% of the districts can do a bill forgiveness program. I think maybe another layer of this is which communities can or can't. Now maybe again for my city, where we do use the CARE bill for PG&E to help, but we can't help much. But if we look at the amount we're spending on code enforcement, if we didn't have to do that, that would be more general fund money back into helping people pay their water rates. That's the kind of data that would help me go back to where I got beaten up royally by my old city council for the latest water rates on that. So again, the detail, I just don't like averaging. My statistics class as an undergrad said you could tell any story when you average the data out. So I'd rather see it unconsolidated on that. Does that make sense? I hate how dilapidated my city looks. It makes me cry. And it makes me wonder when I'm walking around saying, how do I fix this? Especially now that half of it is high fire, and to be honest, all of it is in the ember zone. And we've got to fix that. That's a big problem. And you're going to hear that from some of the board members who aren't on policy committee. The fire component. It's another component to build in. And I went to, by the way, a lovely BAWSCA class, so I'm going to start, doing my own house. But it's going to cost money to go fire ready. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate perspectives, because we're all in the Bay Area, but there's different parts to it. Director Duncan, please.
So I just had two very small points to make. The first one, is there a goal? Is there a goal of 0, or is there an acceptable goal for this? And you don't have to answer it now. And then back to the slide on page 32, you explained it as it's due to declining use. And I also wonder if there's some explanation to shifting more of that water price to the higher users.
Thank you.
That's all.
Appreciate that.
Could be. Yes.
Thank you. She's taking great notes, I can tell. Chair Chambers.
Okay, actually I have one question to begin with. When you're talking, and this has to do with the averaging. When you talk about affordability for typical income household, you take the median household income in each of the 1900 census tracts? Yes. And then within each census tract, it depends upon the agency, you figure out the cost for the 25, for the units, 55 units.
Yes, it's for the median household income at each of the census block.
okay, so if you have poor neighborhoods, you're gonna show unaffordable housing. So it's not like the whole city is unaffordable, 1% in the city is unaffordable. It's 1% in that census block. So I think the averaging is less of a problem than Director Snyder thought it might be. Because if you're doing it within each census block, they should be fairly uniform. The other thing is on this average water bill versus water rates. The real issue there, I think one of the best things we can do to get water bills down, because they really care about water bills, not necessarily the rate, but they care about the overall bill. And to get overall bills down, you can either use less water or you can have lower rates. And if you use less water, for those of us who have to set rates, all of our costs are really fixed costs. So, we've had to increase water rates to maintain our revenues to support our infrastructure. And that's, in the short term, they're not going to save anything. But in the long term, a couple things happen. One, perhaps we need to maintain our systems, but maybe we can postpone some of our capital improvements, or even, let growth of the population base increase our revenue, which will help. And then also, slipped my mind right now. In the long term, perhaps we can postpone some of our, our projects to improve availability, such as, recycled water or desal or whatever. Some of our alternative water supply projects, perhaps they can be postponed a little bit. I know we do not want to give up on our 184 MGD guarantee from San Francisco, but perhaps we can affect the capital improvements that they have to go through for alternative water supplies, which will decrease what we have to bill our customers. But that's basically what I have.
Thank you. I'll start, we'll go around Director Vila, and I'll work down our way down there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Interesting. Thank you. Again, this was very, very informative. A lot of numbers, a lot of averages. I figured Mr. Chambers would have something to do about averages and statistical things. But what was interesting also is I was doing my own numbering here, that the monthly household expenses were 1% of $7,000, and again, it's 1% of $1,100. So even though it's 1% the same, I mean, it's almost double. Almost from $70 a month from the years fiscal year 13-14 to fiscal year 23-24, from $70 to $120. That's a huge jump. And to Director Snyder's point about the drought tolerant and the fire zone area, I'm not sure I'm convinced. I mean, fire ready is more creating a defensible space more than lack of water. So, I mean, I would be very, I mean, I would argue that point, so. But I do agree that you can make the numbers tell whatever story you want. And whether are we here to solve the issue or the affordability of every single household and every single, because we don't know what their income or their expense practices are. We've heard earlier on that some people are not willing to drink water from the tap, but they are willing to spend a lot of money in buying bottled water. And these are low-income housing. I go, like, how does that compute, you know? You turn the water on, you're still paying for it anyway, but then you spend hundreds of dollars paying, you know, all these slats of water bottles to take home. It just, you know. So I don't know if this study is going to be such that we're going to go into these intricacies of human behavior, but I do think that it gives us a very, very good picture, and I'm very happy to see presentations such as this, you know. The bill versus the rate, I mean, that's an ongoing story, and in any organization, sometimes you say, you know, I want to do such a good job that I want to put myself out of work, because how much drought education and how much conservation education are going to keep on pushing on our people. At some point, we're going to say, how are we going to pay for the fixed costs that we have? I mean, the infrastructure is there. Time goes by. It gets old. It needs to change. Leaks happen. Shifting happens. And you go like, you know, you have to balance this out. At some point, we want people to use water so we can charge for it, so we can have money to pay to purchase it. So, you know, those are my comments, yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Director Ragsdale, please.
Thank you so much, Nagin. I found it fascinating to read, and I really appreciate your explanations. And I love that we're looking at this because it's affordability is hugely on everyone's mind, and it is reassuring to have the conclusion, but also the data to back it up. One thought that I had, and I don't know of anything in particular, but in terms of we've surveyed our agencies, and there's Prop 218 limitations on what we can do, which I appreciate. Is there a way to survey, or maybe just even call around, nothing formal, local CBOs that are, you know, helping people out with their bills? You know, the electricity bills are the ones that just seem to be crazy right now, and there are particular, you know, the care fair programs and stuff like that also. But are there other creative ways to help people pay their bills for the people in the lowest quartile that are having difficulty that doesn't come from fellow ratepayers? That I guess I was just interested when you talk about the income analysis, and I don't need an answer now, but just maybe something to put in when we present it to the whole, when you present it to the whole board. In measuring income, like how you differentiate between passive income and fixed income and current income, which I don't even know what you call that. Just because, you know, you could have someone with a whole bunch of money in the bank, but they're retired, and then you have people on a fixed income that are retired that are, you know, are struggling, and, you know, how do you account for those differences?
Thank you. Director Sigeron.
I've had the most time to think about it.
Director Pierce has a little bit longer, but okay.
And Chair Hardy.
I really appreciate that you're delving into this affordability issue. This is social justice. If we don't talk about it or bring it up, we're remiss. So I really appreciate that you're tackling this. And it's a sensitive, tough topic. I do appreciate some of the stats. You can question the basis of some of them. Is it gross income or net income and all those nuances kinds of thing. I think the important BAWSCA role here is to come up with a policy that all these wholesale agencies can kind of agree we ought to, what are the ought-to-dos? That we ought to make water affordable for everybody in the San Francisco Bay Area. That doesn't mean every last person gets free water that can't afford the bill. But there has to be some guidance and some policy, collective thinking that water has to be affordable by virtually everyone. Now, each agency is going to have their own challenges in making that happen, their ways of doing it. I don't think BAWSCA can prescribe ways to get at that issue for everybody, but the point that you need to is the emphasis. It's kind of a qualitative, you ought to do this, it's the right thing to do. So one stat that I thought would be interesting is percents of households that are, water's unaffordable. What percent of the water that we're using is in that being used by the unaffordable categories? Anything above 1.5%. Is that 1/4% of the San Francisco water we use, or 3% or 8%? The nice thing about that kind of a number would be, as managers of water agencies, water systems, we could say, if I only could save, let's say it's 1.5% of water that's used by people that can't really afford their bill. If I can reduce water loss by 1.5%, I could basically cover the cost of reducing the cost of water to those customers. I've offset that. So now I'm collecting more for the water that was just wasted before. Or if we encourage more drought-tolerant landscaping, get irrigation use reduced, X%, I could offset the cost of water that's now not affordable to some people. Maybe some guidance around practices, policies would be the way to focus than fine-tuning stats. It's good to get a general picture, but I'm really glad you're tackling this. And more guidance we can get, and the more unanimity we can get about, let's do something about anybody that can't afford water and fix that. That would be great.
Thank you so much. I hope I didn't cut you off. Were
Nope,
you finished?
no.
Okay, good. Director Pierce.
Well, I have the benefit of listening to all of you smart people in the room, and I appreciate that. And thank you for really delving into this. The numbers aspect is not the thing that interests me, and so I will not debate any of that. What I will say is that affordability is such a tricky concept in our area. We could make water more affordable, but you might still not change people's usage because the rest of their expenses are unaffordable. So it's this balancing game. What I would like us to do with this information is to be aware as we make decisions about what kinds of projects we're going to move forward with, so that we're cognizant of choosing the things that give us the biggest bang for buck, that impact the most people, that help us resolve our water problems and set us up for a successful future for everyone, and then find ways of dealing with the unaffordableness of things, perhaps in other ways. And this is where it's tricky with Prop 218. And I don't know if that's legislation that we all have to come together with. I really liked some of your comments, Tom. I really appreciated the idea of options. I think we have to be careful about what our expectations are. BAWSCA's role is to make sure that we have water, that water is there, and so even if it's expensive, I want us to make those investments. It won't help if things are affordable, but you can't turn on the tap and get what you need and things. So I just think that's tricky, and I think it's one piece of the puzzle, and so I just think we need to be aware that it's one piece and keep talking about it as if this is one thing that we need to be aware of. And I like the idea of having some options that our agencies, the best thinking kind of thing, whether it's the offset by water that's being wasted, or a pool that can be used that people can apply for. I think those things are all very, very helpful. And I think it's obviously different in all of our agencies, whether it's a big issue and how you solve your problems. So thank you, and I appreciate the way that this is being presented, and look forward to the discussion at the board level.
Thank you so much. I appreciated your comment about all the smart people in the room, because I was thinking that too, because the more conversation, the more things that are brought up, the more it gets my brain juices going. I do have Allison that wanted to say something. Tom, you had something to add? Do you want to wait till after Allison? Okay, because before I make my comments, I wanted to pass it off to Allison, our counsel, because Prop 218 gives us real limitations, and I think she can help us with that.
There was more discussion in the work that Nagin and the EKI consultants did about options to address unaffordability of water, but Prop 218, which is a voter initiative, absolutely makes it challenging for many jurisdictions to do the kinds of things that Cal Water, as a public utility, can do, and maybe even Stamford, and I'm not as familiar with how you're organized. There are serious limitations and risks in taking on different kinds of programs, and so BAWSCA cannot be in a position of recommending anything, but there are discussions amongst the WMRs about options. And unfortunately, even though you can fix elements of Prop 218 with legislation, like has happened in recent years where there were changes to ways that people can challenge rates and the protest periods, the fundamentals of 218 can only be changed by another voter initiative. And I think there's a lot of elected officials who are frustrated with the tools that are available to them under that law, and that might spur some change in the future. But right now, the easiest subsidization schemes would be risky and scrutinized by certain ratepayer advocates in the community.
That's legalese for Landis in court. Thank you. Director Chambers?
I was thinking about the numbers again, and when we're talking about the affordability of low-income households, if we are assuming a 55 gallons per person per day rate, I'm thinking about Westboro, where we have high rates, but our average water consumption is 40 gallons per person per day. So if you all of a sudden say everybody needs to have 55 gallons per person per day for minimum usage, and you calculate your bill based upon that, you've increased my bills by 20% or so.
I think that's worth clarifying. I don't know if,
So for the 9 agencies where their water use was below the 55 gallons per person per day, we use the what their actual water use is. Yes. Yeah.
I heard some breath taken in right there. That was good. Yes, Director Schneider, and then Director Sigerman.
Idea. I know that a lot of our customers' water use is probably a range of reasons. I've just texted my city manager saying, I can do it myself now, but do a survey. Because I do not know why our residents just let their yards look like crap. I think they've got enough water for showers and enough water for toilets and, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I do get the argument of, I won't use our water, but I'll go pay $8 a gallon for bottled water on that. But I really don't know why they don't. And I also don't know if, the house next door to me doesn't, well, therefore I won't do it. So there's a little bit of peer pressure. So I might do my own study for our water customers, single family homes mainly, on that. Some townhomes can, yeah. But I'm just curious, because then some of it is messaging and some of it is peer pressure. I used it before because in San Mateo County, my community has the oldest population. And if they've truly been on a fixed income for a long time, that might be why they stop. But I think it's probably more physical. They physically can't do it anymore. But I honestly don't know. So, and I'm trying to think of a comeback for you. You said something and I agree with you, but the new fire data, the biggest problem, they use Woodside in our county as the example of fire ready, where the homes are not next to each other. And then you come to a community like mine where the house next door on either side is 10 feet away. Long term, it means getting rid of wooden fences. So there's a lot of long-term planning on that. But so we can agree to just talk about that one. Well, I always love it when.
I was going to say, Louise, make certain you turn on the microphone.
Well, but honestly, that message,
Maybe
because
he didn't want that recorded.
on the fire side, the message that goes out to our residents is always that single-family house, move the trees 20 feet away. Well, okay, then for a lot of us, our entire front and backyards would be cement or rock, which is the way my city's going on that. So I always hate that picture. I hate that diagram because it's not realistic for a lot of us in different communities. Thank you.
Thank you. It is important to recognize how intertwined all of our realities are. Director Zuckerman, please.
Thank you. Just had another thought on my rambling before. Try to get a little more specific about a recommendation. And Allison, catch me if I'm getting into Prop 218 areas that would be a problem. So I was thinking about emphasizing this point about affordability, maybe setting some kind of a goal of we're not going to allow this unaffordability to increase, or we're going to reduce unaffordability by some amount by 2050. And then look at ways to get there. We recommend that when you are looking at affordability, that maybe in balancing your renewal to preserve reliability of the water system, you consider the cost of that renewal, which is a big part of our rates, and I'm sure a lot of others. Everybody's system is 60, 80 years old on the peninsula. As you're considering the pace of that renewal, driving up your costs of water delivery, think about pacing that in a way that considers the affordability consequence of that, and maybe be sensitive to that. And then, of course, the projects that reduce water waste are really going to help, I think, make water more affordable. And then maybe think about in these alternative supplies that we in San Francisco, everybody's looking at, avoid or postpone as long as you can the most expensive alternative supplies to avoid that pace, that high increase rate of water, and try to preserve the affordability by doing that. So that kind of an approach, I think, can kind of make sense for BAWSCA as a policy for agencies to think about. Maybe not specifying specifics, but general guidance.
Thank you. Director Ragsdale, please.
That got me thinking about another thing that our water management reps, how they can share best practices. I know in Hillsborough, when we're going to be digging up for some reason, there's a lot of coordination among all the other people that might have something under there, and a lot of planning, and maybe you're a little frustrated that your street's not getting fixed when everyone else is getting fixed. It's because they're coordinating. You know, we're going to open this up. Let's fix the water pipe, if it's an undergrounded PG&E or whatever else is under there, do it all at once. So it does take a lot of cooperation with other agencies, which can take time and frustration, but it does save everyone money in the long run.
Thank you. Well, you've had to wait for me to get my thoughts, and I've got a lot of thoughts. I think the term is unintended consequences. And when 218 probably was passed, not everyone was seeing this. And I think it's important as we look at policy that we recognize that there will be unintended consequences. We try to see as much as we can down the road, but to be thoughtful and aware. Also, it's a basic necessity. When you talk about ripping up the road and seeing all of that infrastructure, I say it all the time, our water and sewer system is what makes modern living modern. Without that, yeah, our electricity goes off, we're annoyed. But your water goes out, your sewer goes out, that's an emergency. And this is what we are tasked with. And I think it's very good that we're looking at this. Rates are really a concern, but then so is supply, because if there's no supply, it doesn't matter what the rates are. And that's that long-term reliability. I was surprised to find that on average, the United States has the highest leak percentage for our systems. And I was kind of surprised about that. But when I looked into it a little bit tighter, it was more how much, and there's a difference between leak and waste. And I'm not certain this delineated that. But I was also interested to see the different agencies that have focused on this less leakage and less loss that way, because 1% of our water in the world is fresh. And that's a reality. And being aware that if you waste something, you don't have it. And that's why I've worked so hard with Valley Water over the alternative supply of taking our reclaimed water that we can use, the purple pipe, and cleaning that up even more and making that purified water so it can be potable. And making certain also that we use a very careful word usage so that our public understands, because I would like to take the person who said toilet to tap out to a woodshed and explain to them how that wasn't helpful. But to use the term reclaimed water to then purify it so it is now potable and actually even cleaner than what comes up from our underground aquifers as it is. And recognizing that we can help people. I often use the term, where do you think astronauts get their water? So when they run out, they just go down to Costco and get another case, right? And of course the obvious answer is we have the technology. And if we use the term, we're speeding up nature. Because if you remember, one of the first lessons in science class in elementary school was the water cycle. And what we're doing here is when we purify water is we're speeding it up. Now it is more expensive, but it does make us more reliable. And I like to use the term close the loop, because if I just put it back into the fish toilet, I mean the bay. What we put back in that we have cleaned up from our water treatment plants is cleaner than what's in the bay to begin with. So I know many people will just say, well, we're in the San Francisco Bay. Did you see the ocean? There's plenty of water out there. Well, there is. But it's 5 times more expensive to clean it up. And what we're finding with purified water is it's only double, approximately. And that made a difference. When you look at, I think I understand why you did the multifamily, the single family house as opposed to multifamily, because it's easier to get the data. I'll let you answer to that. When we looked at the pie chart, I was a little surprised that, if you want to go back to it, it just how our housing and some other, right here, housing went down in 10 years, but this other went up, and it was outside of the expenses. I'm going to take a wild guess. The part of that is cell phones and what we're spending, because I know I go to church in Spanish, and most people do not have a computer at all, but they find that they absolutely have to have a cell phone, and that's a tremendous expense initially, and then monthly. And it'd be interesting, there's no way for you to know because it's not delineated out, but just many of these people who are struggling and paycheck to paycheck, that's something that in the last 10 years has become a necessity, just to even survive or to stay connected or to even apply for a job. And so I'm guessing that other one that went from 28% to 39%, we say entertainment, I don't know if a cell phone is going to be considered entertainment, although that's what the kids do with it. I have held that up and said, you realize it has 1,000,000 times more capabilities than the computers they use to get men back and forth from the moon, and you use it to send stupid pictures, dumb texts, and play games. I weep for humanity sometimes. But we've tried to take a creative approach in Santa Clara. First off, we're up to 20% reclaimed water usage in our city, and we are the highest. Now, part of that is the industry and the data centers and things like that that can use the reclaimed water, but we have really worked at that. And I will say, when I start to argue with some people who may be from other municipalities, no names, that I can stand on that and say, you know, is your municipality at that point? And that makes a difference. Also, with 218, now we have our own power company. So what we did is we put together something called Help Your Neighbor. And it is to help people who need basic utilities. That would be electricity, water, all those bills that would come from the city. But it is not part of the ratepayer. We made that a separate program, and you can donate to it, even on the city website. So it is not tied to the ratepayers. But that was a way for people who were concerned, or agencies or anyone, to help someone who was in the lowest rungs and to make a difference. So, and we have not had any pushback because of the way we set it up. So I hope we were creative, and that was just a thought, and we call it Help Your Neighbor. Now, there were some questions directly, if you felt that I heard throughout here. Do you feel like you were taking lots of great notes? Is there anything you would like to share with the committee as far as direct questions that you heard at this time? Oh, I apologize. I've got 2 more people, so you may have a few more questions. I'm not seeing things. I guess I put my contacts in backwards. Director Schneider and then Director Chambers, please.
Just going back to Director Zichterman's comment, if we're going to slow down some projects, there is a project, I did a bathroom remodel, a very expensive bathroom remodel upstairs. I wanted to be able to take the shower warm-up water to a rain barrel down below. And what I was told by our community development all the way up to the state of California is it's coming someday in the universal building codes. So maybe there is work we can do with the universal building codes that, because it kills me. The wall was there, it was time, and it's all gravity, and I couldn't get that. And that's a water supply all year round. Instead, I'm still doing buckets. We're probably all in here still doing buckets, but I'm getting older, and right now buckets, really, 21st century. So I like that idea of exploring which projects can be pushed. But then back to Director Hardy is, if we're talking about reclaimed water and they're so bloody expensive, it's only going to get more expensive. So maybe in the policy suggestions or the project suggestions, it's short, medium, long term on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Director Chambers, please. Let's get you a
Thing again about Tom Zieglerman's idea about trying to figure out what we should have for a goal for affordability. I think it needs to be done by agency, because agencies set up they have different capital improvement programs, different fixed costs, that kind of stuff. Would it be possible, I really like this data and how you've done it. I'd like to thank you for that, although this is about my 3rd time, I should have said earlier. But could we maybe see that data by agency to see where we stand? And that would be appreciated, unless somebody says we shouldn't do that. But
Yeah.
that's my idea.
That sounds like fun, so we can start shooting arrows at each other. See, I told you so. And Director Duncan, please.
So I also should have thanked you earlier, and I didn't, so I wanted to say that. I did have a question. I thought the affordability that the EPA put out there included sewer or wastewater and the combined wastewater water. Do we need to include that? Do we need to look at that? Do we need to factor that into this?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are looking at the sewer rates for a few of our agencies because we don't have it for all of you. So that's kind of like the next stage of also looking at sewer rates for representative agencies. And then that would have a different threshold percentage.
Again, were there any other questions that you wanted to answer that were direct?
Yeah, Director Snyder, we do want to look at even further granular information, but we don't have the information for multifamily in the Bay Area. And we have Andre Lee here from EKI. If you do want to provide a little more information on why we don't have it, but we're looking at census data, and you can't really pull that specific multifamily information from that.
Thank you for that. Is there a way, like in the solid waste field, we actually can calculate the type of waste depending on how many people in an apartment versus a single family? And a little bit of it is psychology on that. But could we just have a difference, maybe a model of, the typical 2-bedroom apartment uses this much water compared to a 2-bedroom single family, and then we can see that percentage that is landscape use. Or maybe that's the other way of saying it. Can we get the landscape water usage dropped out so that it can give me a tool when I go to my lazy residents or my very, very price-sensitive residents? Because the first thing they cut is landscaping.
So, may I?
Yes, please, Director
at-
Schneider. Oh, I'm sorry. I did it again. CEO
It's okay.
Smegal.
Just not to step in for Nagin here,
Please.
but just a reminder that this is sort of an indicator. I mean, we with the resources that we have, the census and the American Family Survey that we have, the data that's available, it's never going to be comprehensive. And so we're looking at indicators. We're looking at how can we be as transparent as possible about what's going on in the service area. And so this is just take this as one data point or one conclusion that you might draw from this particular set of data. And then we need to use this, as Nagin said, in evaluating the projects. And I think we've heard that from the board policy committee here is, does this affect what projects we do and the timing of what projects that we propose to do in the strategy? That's certainly there. I think that, working with Allison, we do want to provide best practices and some of the thoughts about what other agencies have done and what things that have worked under 218 that agencies have done, and that might be helpful both to you and to your water management reps. I think we wanted to keep this somewhat high level and not get into the weeds there. So that's kind of all I wanted to say in that regard.
And I appreciate that because, first off, you can see that all your numbers and all your charts really got us going, and I appreciate that. I told you this was the heart and meat of this meeting because it's good to hear from different agencies, from different realities, and different perspectives, because you've been looking at a lot of numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Did you have other?
No, I think the other one that you
Yes.
had mentioned was others. It's true within this pie chart. Other can include anything else outside the scope of this analysis. It could be cell phones. It's not just entertainment. It could be childcare. Anything else that we couldn't evaluate.
It's just subtraction. So it could be
Yeah.
savings, it could be entertainment,
Exactly.
it could be childcare, as you say.
It's other, which may or may not be as, because you just listed entertainment, my thought was that made it look like it was optional, which it may not be. Yeah, you might want to just add a few things to that. Director Schneider, did you have something before we went to reports?
To kill a dead horse here.
Oh, good. I'll
Any
get
of
you
us who are in those cities with high RENA numbers, therefore building more dense units. One of the main arguments I've had to use for 10 years is all of the 10-story apartment buildings we are building automatically use less water. It's the number one complaint. Oh, they're going to be taking our water. No, they're going to be more efficient for a number of reasons on there. Again, that's why SFDs and MFDs are different. And I'm just more comfortable in talking and having that data, because you don't buy certain things when you live in a smaller place because you can't fit it. So you don't buy Costco big cereal in an apartment because you don't have the storage, versus you might buy it when you go to a single family dwelling. So the design of your garbage or recycling bin is based on that. That's kind of where my field comes from. Just to give you an idea of why it's so important, the differences between the two.
I think that is important to recognize that especially new housing is more efficient, and good comparison. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think we've given you lots to think about.
Yes, thank you.
Number 7, CEO reports. CEO Smegal. If I say Tom around here, there's too many.
Too many
Too many
Toms.
what?
Okay. I have a few items that were not covered in the CEO letter, and happy to take questions about that as well. As Danielle mentioned earlier, we're very proud of the fact that we have 25 of the 26 agencies that have signed off on Tier 2 plan and water supply amendment, 89% of our purchases. And we've described which entity is left. And Danielle and I will be paying close attention to them over the next month or so. I do have the water supply conditions slides from San Francisco. Normally this time of year we don't think of them much because it doesn't usually rain, although the first day of the water year it rained. System storage conditions continue to be excellent, but I did want to highlight, if I can skip down to it, this is barely making a blip because it's the first week of the water year. We actually had measurable precipitation both in the Bay Area and in the upcountry, and I think it's expected to rain again this weekend. So good start to the water year, which is encouraging. I think we all remember that in the Sierras, the fact that we had 3 average to above average years in a row was unique, and so it would be very unique to have a 4th average to above average year in a row. So we look with some trepidation about the weather, just given statistics, but happy to have a 4th good year in a row if we can. And yeah, I mentioned that the potential for rain this weekend. The deliveries for this year, calendar year, have been pretty much spot on for past years. No big changes there. So Bay Delta, I know you heard from Tom Francis at the board meeting, most of this update. So we did receive, or I guess it was just after the board meeting, right? It was a couple of days after the board meeting, but I did send out a communication to the board. We did issue a statement. So the State Water Board finally issued a draft scientific basis report for the Tuolumne, which is really excellent news. This is something that when I came on board last December, it had been expected sometime in the fall of 2024. And so it was in the fall of, or I guess it was still in the summer, right, the 19th? It was still in the summer of 2025. So we're very happy that that came out. It moves the schedule along. It kind of keeps the ball rolling. I think editorially, we're not sure, just to be honest, whether the contents of that document are a good thing or a bad thing. We're evaluating them. San Francisco's evaluating them. Others will have comments. We will likely have comments, make either written comments or verbal comments at the workshop. Comments are due on November 7th, and the workshop is November 5th. And so expect to hear more from us about this as we move forward over the next month. But it's a really dense technical document. It's over 500 pages with appendices, so there's a lot in there, but it's really dry. It's really really technical, without a lot of sort of conclusory statements in it. The Bay Delta Plan Phase 2, which you remember is the Sacramento side and the Delta itself, they had issued a draft staff report. They've pulled that now with the expectation that they're going to reissue that in December. And they wanted to make some, I think they wanted to make some small tweaks to it before they got comments and before they had workshops. So there had been some scheduled workshops. Those are off the table until next year. And we'll let the board know when those are rescheduled. And similarly, with the FERC process, this is the relicensing for Don Pedro. MID and TID, Modesto and Turlock, have withdrawn the application for the water quality certification for a similar reason. They got comments back on their initial filing that would have taken them longer than a year to respond to, and the process that they have has a limitation of a year. And so they pulled their application with the intention of working on a response to some of the comments and concerns and refiling that when they feel like they can do it within the statutory timeline. So that's kind of the FERC update there. Any questions? I think that's the last of my slides here. Any other questions on CO report or CO letter?
I do not see any questions. I will say, well, I can start praying for rain now because we had our city parade last weekend. We didn't want it to rain on that. But everyone talks about the weather. No one's willing to do anything about it. Just kidding. But we are hoping, because our reservoirs are in a good place, I know I breathe a little bit easier, but each year when we start over with this water year, I've lived through enough droughts around here. It's like, my dad had a phrase. He said, during a drought, plan for a flood. During a flood, plan for a drought. And you will never be caught unawares. And I think that's important to recognize. And with this long-term planning, well, we know we'll have another drought. It also takes me back to a very old television show by Bob Newhart. When they were experiencing a drought, they got so desperate they hired some rain dancers. And the comment was, are you sure you was standing directly east when you was juggling those squirrels naked? Because it didn't work. And the reality is, all we can do is plan for what we have and recognize that we are dependent on the weather and make certain that we are using our resources well. So I appreciate the planning and advancement of that. That's my terrible comments, shame on me. I just remember, I've got that terrible picture in my mind now and I can't get rid of it. I was gonna say, if there's anything else, Director Axdale, please. Elevate the conversation, please.
If we're on comments?
Yes, comments by committee members.
So
please.
this applies to everyone, whether you're on council, if you have high schoolers in your life, in your town. There is a relatively new California Association of Youth Commissions, but you don't have to be in a youth commission to be part of it. And they have two free events. There's a virtual conference the morning of Saturday, November 15th. And then there'll be an in-person conference in this building in March. Again, also free. They did both of these last year, and that was their first year in existence. And they were spectacular events with interesting topics. So anyway, if anyone is interested, you can look it up, California Association of Youth Commissions, but also just
I
send
was
me an
wondering
email.
if it was do we know a specific topic they're going to be handling?
They're still working on the topics. They're
Maybe
still
we
working.
should tell them water.
Yes, that's right. I know a lot of them are very environmentally inclined. They got Rob Bonta to come to the Burlingame Rec Center in person last spring.
Okay.
Not because somebody knew people, but just because they were insistent and just kept emailing him. So, yeah, it's a fantastic group of kids. So anyway, everyone's invited, whether they're part of a youth commission or not, as long as they're young and interested.
Excellent. I don't know if I am young anymore, but I know people that are wonderful. Director Snyder and then Director Vila.
I finally have time now to actually go to classes. So Burlingame's Environmental Committee had a class here last week, and the speaker was talking about California native and drought tolerant plants. But they had this lovely artificial turf BAWSCA handout. And I walked in the room and he spent the first 20 minutes on this. And he's an adamant anti-fake grass person, so yay. But it was really lovely to see this. We actually, I don't know if it's on the city's website, it's the first city to ban it. But if you like, I can probably give you more reasons. And there's new data coming out all the time on that. But it was just it was a lovely workshop. And it was so lovely to see this. So whoever did it, thank you. Thank you, yay.
That's Kyle's area. And we're actually doing a little refresh of some of our materials. So if you want to pass that along to me, your thoughts, I can pass them along to Kyle.
I'm really slow right now, but I'll get to it.
No worries.
But it was
Very good. Thank you. The more education, I always say you can govern with fear and it works, but it's short term and you have to keep the fear up. But governing with education and information is long-term and makes the biggest difference. Thank you. Director Vila.
Yes, thank you. So about a week ago, some of us went to the Hetch Hetchy tour, which was extremely educational. This was not my first time up there. This was the second time. But if you haven't been up there for more than 5 years, you should. And those of you who haven't been up there, definitely you should. Because as we are talking about, whether it's precipitation, whether it's seasoning, the drought and all of that, where the water is coming from, it will help us a lot to talk about this if we see actually the facilities themselves. So I encourage you to go to that tour whenever it becomes available and your time obviously permits. The other thing that I wanted to share with everybody is before I came here today, I had a tour of the Silicon Valley Clean Water Facility in Redwood City. And this is the product of what they are working on. It's not in production yet because it says here for a sustainable future, but it's not for sale. So, but I was with a small group of people and everybody was drinking it. The only reason that I didn't drink it is because I wanted to come here and show it to you. Otherwise I would have. And talking about alternative water, supplies of water, this is part of the future right here. So, and I will be more than happy to coordinate a tour of that place. I have good contacts there. I'll be more happy to do it, for this group, for the whole BAWSCA group. So we'll wait probably till after the holidays, and I will arrange for a tour of that place. Whoever wants to join us, to go. Okay. That's it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And it says toilet to tap on there?
No.
Teat to teat.
Gonna get your tongue pulled
Shower
out for that one. So, and I appreciate that down in the South Bay off Zanker Road, the Valley Water has their purified plant, and you can also get some of the bottled water there, and they have free tours, and you can sign up for those tours online. And they have a virtual one as well as in person. So we really, the more people who see that, the better. And thank you I'd love to see the other plant too. So I appreciate that. Anything else? Yes, please.
Before you do that, the next meeting is in December, and if you read through to the end of your packet, you'll realize that's going to be a long-ish meeting. There's a lot of good topics there that we've been kind of pushing, both the demand study and the strategy study, but as well talking about our additional discretionary payment on the pension plan, if you'll remember that discussion from earlier in the year, plus starting up the budget process again. So expect a fruitful discussion at our December meeting. Maybe snacks. Maybe we'll have more snacks.
We'll make certain we have enough time, but we also, I appreciate that, make certain that's on your calendars, and we'll see you next month at the general board meeting. Thank you so much. This meeting's adjourned.